Imagine a boy who has nothing. No money, no warm bed, just a pencil, and one big dream. That boy was Walt Disney, and 60 years later, the whole world knew his name. But before he built Mickey Mouse, before he built Disneyland, before he built the greatest entertainment empire in the history of the world, Walt Disney lived a life that almost no one remembers. Today, you will hear his real story, the story of the poor boy who drew the future. Walt Disney was born on the 5th of December 1901 in Chicago. He had 3 older brothers and 1 younger sister. His family was very poor. His father, Elias, worked many jobs, but never kept any of them. He was a hard man, a cold man. He believed that children must learn through fear. When Walt was 4 years old, his family moved to a small farm in Marceline, Missouri. For young Walt, the farm was paradise. Green fields, animals everywhere, apple trees full of red fruit. He spent hours watching the chickens, the pigs, the cows. He drew them with sticks in the dirt. He drew them on old newspaper. He drew them on the walls of the barn. His mother, Flora, sometimes laughed when she saw his drawings. His father did not laugh. His father beat him for using paper without permission. He beat him for being slow. He beat him for being too quiet. He beat him almost every day. But every night when the house was dark, Walt found a stub of pencil and a piece of paper. And he drew. Always he drew. The animals on the farm, faces from his sister's books, the shapes of clouds. He could not stop. Many years later, Walt would say, "Drawing was the only place where my father could not reach me." When Walt was 15, his family moved to Kansas City. He worked before school and after school, selling newspapers in the freezing winter mornings. In school, his teachers said he was lazy. They said he did not pay attention. They said he drew too much in his notebooks. He did draw too much. But not because he was lazy, because his head was full of pictures that needed to come out. In 1918, the First World War was ending. Walt was only 16, but he wanted to serve. He changed his birth date on his papers and joined the Red Cross. He drove an ambulance in France. When he came home, he wanted only one thing: to draw cartoons. He found a small job at the Pesman Rubin Commercial Art Studio in Kansas City. There he met another young artist, a quiet, talented man named Ub Iwerks. They became best friends. They became partners. A few months later, both of them lost their jobs. They tried to start a small business together. It failed. Walt found another job at a slide company, drawing simple cartoons for advertisements. He was burning with ideas. But then his boss called him into the office. "Walt," he said, "I'm sorry. You are a good worker, but you do not have enough imagination for this job." Imagination. They told Walt Disney that he had no imagination. Walt walked out into the cold Kansas City street. He sat on the steps, and for a long time he just stared at the ground. But Walt did not stop. He could not stop. In 1922, when he was only 20 years old, he opened his own animation studio in Kansas City. He called it Laugh-O-Gram Films. He hired Ub Iwerks. He hired 4 other young artists. They worked day and night, making short cartoons. But Walt did not understand business. He spent more money than he earned. After only 1 year, Laugh-O-Gram went bankrupt. Walt slept on the floor of his small office because he could not pay rent. He ate cold beans from a can. He took baths once a week at the train station, and every night he drew until the sun came up. In 1923, with only $40 in his pocket, Walt bought a one-way train ticket to Hollywood. There, he started again, this time with his older brother, Roy. For 3 years, the brothers built a tiny studio behind their uncle's garage. They created a cartoon character named Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. For the first time, Walt had real success. He earned money. He hired more artists. He bought his first house. He thought he had made it. Then, in 1928, he traveled to New York to negotiate a new contract for Oswald. The meeting destroyed him. The producer told him that Oswald did not belong to Walt. The producer owned the character. He had also hired most of Walt's animators behind his back. Walt was completely betrayed. He took the long train ride back to Hollywood. 3 days. 3 days alone, with nothing to do but think. He could not lose everything again. He needed a new character, a character that no one could ever take from him. Walt took out his pencil. He started to draw a small mouse with round black ears, white gloves, red shorts. He called him Mortimer Mouse. But his wife, Lillian, said the name was too serious. "Why don't you call him Mickey?" she said. "That mouse would change the world." On the 18th of November 1928, Walt Disney released the first Mickey Mouse cartoon with sound. It was called Steamboat Willie. The audience had never seen anything like it. The drawings moved with the music. The mouse whistled. The boat danced. Within 1 year, Mickey Mouse was the most famous character in the world. But Walt was not satisfied. He wanted more. He wanted color. He wanted full-length films. He wanted not only laughter, but real emotion in animation. In 1934, he announced an impossible idea, a full-length animated movie, 80 minutes long, hand-drawn, about a princess and 7 small men. Everyone in Hollywood laughed. They called it Disney's Folly. They said it would destroy the studio. For 3 years, 200 animators worked night and day. Walt put every dollar he had into the film. He took loans. He almost lost the studio. On the 21st of December 1937, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs opened in Los Angeles. The audience did not laugh. The audience cried. They stood up and cheered for 10 minutes. Snow White earned $8 million, more than any film in history. Now Walt was rich. Now he was famous. But he wanted one more thing. When his daughters were small, Walt used to take them to amusement parks. He would sit on a bench and watch them play, and he would feel sad. The parks were dirty. The food was bad. The workers were rude. So Walt had a new dream. A clean, magical park, a kingdom where families could be happy together. Everyone said it was crazy. The banks said no. His brother Roy said no. Even his wife said no. But Walt did not stop. He sold his house. He used his life savings. He borrowed against his life insurance. And on the 17th of July 1955, Disneyland opened its gates in California. The first day was a disaster. Too many people, broken rides, hot weather. Walt walked through his park with a heavy heart. But he did not give up. By the end of the first year, 3.5 million people had visited Disneyland. By the time Walt Disney died in December 1966, his name was known on every continent. Walt Disney never finished school. His own father told him he was worthless. The world told him he had no imagination. But every night, every single night, he sat alone with a pencil and a piece of paper. And he drew. That is the story of the boy who drew the future. If this story warmed your evening, subscribe to Lamplight English. Every Tuesday and Friday, a new chapter. Told slowly, told clearly, told by Lamplight. Until next time.